Good evening and welcome to tonight's Book Bus, the Halloween edition. We are delighted to have you all joining us here at the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Library. My name is Asha. I am the manager of library services here and will be your host tonight. Before I introduce today's program, I would like to take a moment to thank the Stavros Niarchos Foundation for making programs such as this possible. I would also like to remind you that if you do not have a library card, it's very easy to get one. Just visit any information desk on any floor in this building. It opens up a world of books, community, learning, knowledge, and so much more. I also encourage you to visit the New York Public Library website and look up future 7 Stories Up programs like this one. We would love to have you all join us in these spaces again. Today's lineup includes 2 panels featuring horror and mystery writers and an opportunity to learn about new and upcoming titles from Penguin Random House staff. We will have copies of some of these titles available for free at the end of the event. Our first panel includes Victor Suthammanont and Lynn Liao Butler, 2 mystery writers. Victor Suthammanont is a lawyer and author. Hollow Spaces is his debut novel. He lives in New York City. Lynn Liao Butler is a Taiwanese-American author. Her thriller, Someone Else's Life, was an instant Amazon bestseller. And her second book, Red Thread of Fate, was a finalist in the WFWA Star Awards for 2023. She and her family, including 2 rescue dogs and a myriad of foster animals, divide their time between New York's and Kauai. Interviewing the authors is Melissa Schurer, a longtime supervising librarian here at SNFL and a longtime mystery reader. Now, she likes to solve mysteries at the library about books that are missing, mislabeled, or miscatalogued. Please welcome Victor, Lynn, and Melissa.
Okay, we have a lot to get in tonight, so I'm just gonna jump right in with some questions, if that's okay with everybody. Victor.
Yes.
When you read the summary of Hollow Spaces, it sounds like it could be called a legal thriller, maybe, but a lot of legal thrillers, they focus on the case itself and the build-up and the procedures, and the book kind of, sometimes ends with the verdict, but you took a different approach. In fact, most of the book is after a verdict. What made you take that approach?
Yeah, I have this thing where I'm kind of obsessed with starting projects at the end, or I watch shows or things and constantly and like, oh, what happens next? And so that's a pre-existing thing, and then it's a pre-existing affliction of mine, and then. In the legal system or most legal dramas, you get to the end, the verdict, and like she said, the structure is typically, oh, here's the verdict, the truth is known, you have your satisfaction. But I'm a lawyer, and you understand that there's a lot of things that happen after a verdict, both for within the system, but also for the people involved in the system. So. In a conviction, somebody goes to jail, and then they have to deal with that, and the victims have to find a way to pick up the pieces of their lives. But what if it's an acquittal, in which case then somebody was either, gotten away with a crime or falsely accused of one, depending on, what the situation is. And that seemed to me to be a compelling kind of place to start a story. And so that's kind of why I did it. And it allowed me to, I think, dive into some issues and themes that most legal dramas do not get to touch because they end at the verdict.
Yeah, they're so focused on getting there that, I thought that was a really interesting take.
Thank you.
Lynn, I would like to know, what is your experience with book clubs that made you associate them with murder?
Okay, Is that better? There we go.
Success.
Okay. So I was on a virtual book club once. And let me just say I'm very petty. Okay. So do not judge me. But I don't care if you don't like my book. It's totally fine. It's subjective. I just don't want to know about it. Okay. So I was on a virtual book club and I logged in right on time, just like a responsible author would do. And I see a few members on there chit-chatting, and there's one woman who's going, I just haven't read any good books lately. They've all sucked, and why is it so hard for an author to write a book that would keep me interested? And I'm sitting there like, do you realize that the author whose book you're reading, is logged in and listening? And I see other members going, and they're all like trying to shut her up, and the woman just keeps going on and on about how like, is there so much to ask an author to write a good book? And then she finally sees me, because my name's Lynn Liao Butler's on there, and she went, and she shuts off the video. And I'm like, I can see you, dude. I already saw you. And then I had to spend, all I wanted to do was like slam the phone down, but you can't slam a video call and just like leave, right? But I was nice and professional, and for 45 minutes, I stayed and answered questions. Meanwhile, inside, I'm like, I'm gonna murder her. So then I was on another online author talk thing, and they were saying, where do you get your ideas? I'm like, from real life or from things I hear about. And I was like, for example, I was on this, book club. And I told them the situation. They were like, "Oh, that's horrible." I'm like, "So can you imagine? We're here, we're on Zoom. Can you imagine if all our videos cut out, but you can still hear, and you hear one of us getting killed, but you don't know who it is or where they are?" And I was like, they were like, "Oh, that sounds great." I'm like, "Oh, that sounds great. I'm gonna write this book." And so, hence, the Deadly Book Club was born, with bad people doing bad things. See, I'm petty. But I get it out on the page, and then I'm a very nice person in real life. So, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, she's very, very nice.
He's like, oh,
She made us say that. No. You mentioned, Victor, that you're a lawyer, and you're still you're a practicing
Yes.
lawyer. How does being a lawyer affect your writing process at all?
Yes.
Oh, how does it affect your writing process?
Nice. Good open-ended question. I think they feed into each other. So obviously, as a lawyer, or at least the kind of lawyer I am, I'm a litigator. You end up writing a lot. You're telling stories to your client stories, basically, and arguing. And so most legal writing is persuasive in the sense of you're trying to make an argument. And so the way I incorporate that into fiction is, when I start writing, I don't necessarily know what my book is about or what it is I'm trying to say. Sometimes I do in a general sense, but I kind of make it sharper as I go. And so at some point when I figure out what the argument the book is making, I start thinking about it the same way I would think about a legal brief, in the sense of, how is this chapter helping this argument? How is this paragraph helping this argument? How is this sentence helping that argument? And it could be sub-arguments, right? Because it's, you have subplots and different themes. And so that, that's one way. And in this particular book, I wanted to make the legal aspects of it somewhat, at minimum, plausible, if not accurate. But vague enough so that it wasn't boring. I didn't have to do that much research. So in that sense, it was helpful.
Which is great.
Yeah, it saved me a lot of time. But yeah, that's the primary way in which it helps me.
Nice.
Yeah, and I just picked a spring about depositions, so.
What is it? Take a deposition.
Take a deposition. Not what did I say was?
Draft.
Speaking of writing process and fiction versus maybe a different type of genre, Lynn, I think is this your first mystery? No.
This is my third mystery, but my 7th book.
But and so your other books are romance, fiction. Is there a different process between?
No, it's all the same. It just, for me, I love to write in 3 genres. So I write upmarket, which is like literary fiction, thrillers and rom-coms, and it just depends on what mood I'm in. So if I'm mad at someone, I'll write a thriller and kill them off. And then if I then there's too much blood and gore, so then I was like, okay, now it's time to write a rom-com, have a happily ever after. And then I also write literary fiction, which takes place in Taiwan, about the Taiwanese culture and during the martial law era. So those are more serious books. And for some reason, those are the easiest books for me to write. I can just bang those out. Thrillers are the hardest. I don't know. Do you find that? Mysteries and thrillers?
Yeah, I mean, I in my mind as I wrote this, because I'm somewhat pretentious, I wrote it as literary fiction, and
then turned into
the
a thriller.
publisher was like, "Well, we're going to call it crime and thriller." So here's where we are.
Yeah, and they're hard to plot. Like you have to figure out. You have to keep the reader engaged. You have to plant seeds, and then you have to have twists, and thriller readers are the harshest critics. So they're like, oh, I figured that out within 20 pages or something. And you're like, ugh. And I spent half a year trying to figure that out. So yeah, I find those the hardest to write.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Both of these novels use a sort of, in different ways, but they both use a timeline device and also multiple perspectives, both of them. And in what ways do those elements serve the story?
For me, I wanted to address, like I said, in my mind, I was writing something that was more literary fiction or art market, and the theme I wanted to address was kind of, as a father to two children and as the son of, obviously I'm somebody's son, and being at the point in my life where I was kind of thinking about what it is to be. My father passed away when I was writing the book, and when I was at the point of my life when I was thinking about what it is to be both a father and a son, I wanted to think about the things that we give to our children, good and bad, and what we take from our parents. And so having the two different timelines enabled me to kind of show two things. One is, because again, the story's about the family. The mystery's there, and I think it's interesting, but it's about these family people, and kind of explore that story and the mystery he left them, right, that they're trying to solve, and kind of work through that kind of process. And so, I mean, that's kind of how I came to that.
I've always written dual POVs. I don't think any of my books have just one single POV, but when I was drafting the Deadly Book Club, I knew I needed more than two people, because it has to be you're trying to figure out which of the five got killed. So this is a big undertaking. But so again, like I said, I'm petty. So I named each, what is said here stays here, right? Because I'll have to hunt you down and kill you if you don't repeat this, okay? So I named each of the five characters after an editor who has passed on one of my books. And then I felt better. So do not leak that. But so I named it, but I gave them variations. So it was like Lee, they became Leah, or stuff like that. So I finally told my agent, and she spent an hour trying to figure out which which editor was. But yeah, so I wanted that 5 different POVs, and it flashes back. It starts before the murder, and then during the murder, or the murder, and then after the murder. So
yeah,
I have fun doing it.
Is it difficult to keep track of who's doing what and make sure it all makes sense?
I mean, for me, it was difficult to write in terms of keeping track, because once you're in the stories, they're dual timeline, but they're somewhat linear, and that's how I wrote them. I knew where I left them. I mean, I did write the majority of the novel, 90% of it, without knowing the answer to whether he did it, including the father's whole story.
Wow.
So I literally wrote every word of the father's story except for the part where I basically wrote it without knowing, and it was kind of interesting to do it that way. That was a fun writing challenge. But yeah, so.
Awesome.
Well, so I had 5 characters, including the killer, so that's 6 characters, right? So I made them, the way I did it, because it's a virtual book club, they're all bookstagrammers, so each of them had a genre they liked. So one literary, one was a horror, one was true crime, one was romance, and then, or whatever, something like that. and then I very distinctly laid out their characters. So one was a chef, and she was like a well-renowned chef. Another one was a sports writer, but who was also a call girl on the side. Or she calls herself a high-class escort, so not a call girl. And then there's one who is a spoiled brat, and there's an ex-actress. So they all had their own thing, and so they were very clearly had a voice. So I would laid out the, which character is which chapter, and then I wrote each character sequentially so that I kept the voice, and then went back and did the second, whatever, and then I went back through the whole thing and edited.
I forgot that that one character was a sports writer.
She was a sports writer / high-class call girl. And if you guys do read the Deadly Book Club, I just want you to know that it is bad people doing bad things, and it's supposed to be that way. Because I've had some people that I accidentally read a review that's like, oh, these people are horrible, they're despicable, but it was me being petty and going, what if we could do whatever we wanted without consequences?
Oh, no. I have purposefully gone and read my reviews on Goodreads, and people really take issue with my characters who are people doing... Yeah, I mean, they're just living their lives.
We all do bad things, right?
Making bad choices. They make bad choices.
And your character, well, I don't know, Victor, the characters in Hollow Spaces, I found, I was sympathetic to all of them,
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. I mean, I think I tried to make them real, and real people make bad choices. But when I at least differently, it sounds like one difference we have is I'm not writing characters to be revenge figures for people I don't like. But in writing them, I tried to be compassionate, right? I tried to be compassionate to these characters on the page, but without. I think a mistake sometimes writers make that I've seen is they fall in love with their own characters and try to make them too nice or too perfect, and then you lose either a sense of realism or you take away the drama because they're not making bad choices. And I tried to think about, for me, it was easy. It was like, okay, if this were me and I were the worst possible version of myself, what would I do? And then here I am writing this character and this next character, and then they take on their own identities after a while, I find, and then it's less about like, oh, what would Victor do in this bad situation, or the worst choice I would make, and then it's like, okay, now he's this person, this different character. But at the same time, I'm trying to write it as if this is a real person who deserves compassion. And then it's another place where the legal thing helps, right? Like, obviously, you have a client, or my private practice, you represent people who have made mistakes or do bad things, and they're still people. And so you have to learn to kind of detach from that a little. And so I almost treat some of these, I'm not making arguments for them, but just trying to present their story in a kind of way that's a little,
on all the sides.
In my past 6 books, all my characters are sympathetic, they're likable, whatever. This is the only book I've ever written that had unlikable characters, and I call it a bonkers book because I just threw it out there. I was like, it was, I guess it was during a time of my life when I was like just angry. so that's how and then I felt better after, and then I became a nice person again.
So your next book is going to be nice people?
Yes, they're very sympathetic, nice people.
Are you working on something new?
yes.
My agent recently sold another book that comes out next August, and that one is the literary fiction. So the book that came out in August is called The Fourth Daughter, and it's about it's a dual timeline between present day Taiwan and 1950s, 60s martial law era in Taiwan. I was born in Taiwan, and a lot of people don't know what has been happening in that country for the last century of stuff. So I wanted to incorporate the history of Taiwan without being a political book. So it's about a woman whose 18-month-old daughter is stolen by her husband and given away as a future daughter-in-law to another family. And she spent 63 years looking for this daughter, and then she thinks she sees her and asks her granddaughter from New York to come and help her find it. So the book that is coming out in August is in that same vein. So no more killing for now.
For now.
Until somebody pisses me off again.
Exactly. Is there a part of the process of, because I imagine it's a process, writing. I mean, I'm not a writer, but it's a process. Are there parts that you enjoy more than others? Parts that you don't enjoy?
Yeah. I actually enjoy all of it. I enjoy the first draft process. It drives me crazy sometimes. I get stuck. But I like the intellectual problem and the working through. This book in particular, I think I put a lot of personal stuff in there in terms of just like dug deep in terms of trying to relay these characters in their emotional lives, and that made me go deep into my own. And that was tough work, but I found it rewarding. I like editing. I like trying to make something better and make it shine. And then obviously once you're in the publication process, that part for a debut, this is my first book, it was wildly educational. I was like, oh, this is how this works. Oh, this is how this works. Oh, this is how this works. And that was a lot of fun for me. So yeah, I actually enjoyed all of it.
That's great. I absolutely hate first drafts. I cannot stand it. It's like the bane of my existence. And but I love editing. So like once I get that messy first draft, I love going back, and I love it when the editor gives me notes. And I also love deadlines. A lot of my friends hate them, but I like deadlines because if you tell me write a book in 6 weeks, I will sit down and write you a book in 6 weeks. If you tell me, oh, there's no, just get handed in whenever, I won't write it. So, yeah.
How long did each of your books take to write?
Oh God, this one took me a long time. I have 2 novels before this one that we have not sold, but I think are great. Those I wrote within a year. From start to finish, I finished the first draft within a year. This one took me, I want to say, 4 years maybe. I got really stuck in some places. I was also busy at work, but mostly it was just being stuck on some story points and how to pull it together, because I felt this one was very ambitious in terms of what I wanted to do with the timeline, structurally, technically, but also in terms of what like I said, I was pretentious. I wanted to be literary fiction. I wanted to feel polished and good, and I spent a lot of time on that, and it just was that held me up a little bit.
Well, it worked.
My agent says I write faster than traditional publishing works. So I can write a book in a month, but that doesn't mean before I even sit down to write, I've thought about the characters, the plot. I have it completely outlined, so I know exactly what's going to happen. So by the time I sit down, I can write it. So it takes about 6 months, but I've sold 2 books on proposal, which means you only give them 3 chapters and a synopsis, and then they bought the book and turned around and says, "Can we have the rest of the book in 6 weeks?" So yeah,
and you say sure.
I say sure,
no problem.
Whatever. Yeah, I have a deadline. I have a draft due on Thursday, so in 2 days, and my computer just crashed last week.
Oh.
And I did back it up, but I left Kauai on Monday last week, and I had backed it up right before I left, but I left the hard drive there because I was like, oh, I don't need it. So I had to get a new computer, but my hard drive's over there. So yeah.
That's scary.
That's a writer's worst nightmare, right?
I have so much anxiety right now.
Go home and back up.
Oh, no, I am a backup crazy person. I have literally 4 or 5 different backups of everything in different locations, physical ones. No, I'm not even kidding. I make a backup hard drive. I take it to my brother's house, and I'm like, just in case my house burns down and the entire internet infrastructure, the cloud goes down, there is a hard drive here in your house. And if both of those burn down, then...
That's a good idea. I'm going to start doing that. Lauren, will you take a hard drive for me?
That's got to be a good friend or relative that you give the hard drive to. What writers influenced you the most?
Okay, what else? I have an answer for that.
I think that's because my...
No, it's okay. I did not always want to be a writer. I was a ballet and modern dancer in New York City for years. And then I was a fitness and yoga instructor. So I didn't start writing until 2015. And because I'm a huge reader, I read 5 to 7 books a week on Kindle, on ebook, on
Well-
physical book. I'm always reading. Like I'm reading as I walk, as I eat. My mom's like, "You're gonna kill yourself one day and walk into a wall." But so I was a huge reader, and in 2013, my life fell apart. Like everything bad that you could happen, and then I started reading Leanne Moriarty. Do you guys know her?
Mm-hmm.
And her books are based in Australia, but for some reason, like I just felt like she got me, and I was like, her books helped me through this difficult time, and so on January 1st, 2015, I woke up and said, I'm going to write a book. I want to do what Leanne Moriarty did, but for Asian people too. So she was the reason why I started writing. And when I started writing, I had never taken a writing course in my life, like except for what you needed for school. I took her books and I dissected it and like kind of, figured out where she put the first hint and the first climax, and I plotted it out.
Wow.
And that's how I learned to write.
Oh, that's cool.
So I taught myself.
That's amazing.
I think I told myself before I did the whole book tour stuff that I would give a different answer to this question every place, and I've never done that. So I'll go with the tried and true. But there's Tom Lin wrote a book called The Thousand Crimes of Ming Su, which is a kind of a magical realistic Western about a Chinese hitman in the Old West. And what he did there in terms of just blending the genre and elevating that language, but it was, I got to say, I had already started this project, but it made me want to be more ambitious with it. And other than that, I think I really like Stephen King. I like his crime stuff. I also like his book on writing. If anybody here is a writer and wants to read a really great book on how to write a book, or write anything, really, an essay, it's just amazing. And it's a memoir too, so it's really interesting. It tells stories about writing that are really interesting. But so I would say those two.
Okay.
And in keeping in theme of, I know you have the horror panel next, so that's why Stephen King.
Ah,
There we go. See?
good segue. But I don't think we're quite ready yet. You mentioned reading for, aspiring writers or just waking up and saying you want to write a book. But do you have any advice that you would give to people who want to, just in general, become a writer, or maybe more specifically, like what to do if you get stuck with meeting other writers or trying to get a publisher to publish you?
I would have never considered myself stuck with meeting other writers. I find that part of this process to be awesome. But in terms of realistic advice, I mean, you got to actually write to kind of practice. So I think that's right words. I have found I have written things as jokes. I've been at bars with friends and I made a joke like, can I start a short story with a bullet point list? And then I went home and wrote it and found what the story was as I was writing this list. And I was like, oh, this is fun. And then I sold it to Audible back in 2020. So that was fun. That was like the first project I ever sold. But I try to have fun with it, and I try to like really take an objective view of my own work, whatever that means. I try to step away from it once I finish the first draft and really try to come to it as if I didn't write it. And I work trained that for me because, as a lawyer, you write something, you give it to, people who are working with you, and they tell you how much it sucks and how terrible it is and how dumb you are and how, and you kind of learn why you're dumb and why you're terrible. And then you need to hold dolls on stage to keep yourself like feeling confident enough to talk in a public setting. But no, I'm kidding. But part of it is developing a thick skin. Like, I go on Goodreads, I'm not even kidding, and read bad reviews because I find them to be hilarious. Because I've built up a very thick skin, and sometimes reviewers can be wrong. But sometimes I'm like, you know what, valid. That's valid. You did not like that. I hear you. That's a personal choice, a subjective choice. But I go in there honestly to look for things, nuggets of, is there something I could have done better? Like, is there an actual valid critique that is interesting to me that I should engage with in my mind, if not on the page at some point?
Yeah, and my advice is, if you want to write, you don't need an MFA or MBA or whatever it is. You don't need to take writing courses. I mean, it's great to take writing courses, but I'm saying if you never taken one, you can still, because I did. Just write. Just if it's bad. I wrote my first book in 6 months, and I didn't know you're supposed to let other people read it first. And I started querying it, and it was so bad. I'm so embarrassed now. Like people actually read it because I got 5 requests from agents. It had no plot. It was just like, but the best thing to do is join a critique group. So here in New York City, there is actually a New York City writers critique group or something like that. And we used to meet at New York Public Libraries all the time. Then COVID hit, so now it's virtual. So it's on Meetup. But join critique groups. Back when Twitter was Twitter, I met critique partners on there. My critique partner lived in, I think, Germany or something. I met a lot of people on there. Join contests. There used to be Pitch Wars and Rev Pit. Pitch Wars doesn't exist anymore, but there's other contests that you can do. Meet other writers. That's so important. And just write. Like, I'm always like, just get it down because you can edit something, but if you don't write anything, you can't edit it. And the other thing is, if you get writer's block, hang upside down for 5 minutes every day. No, I swear, as a yoga instructor, you're supposed to hang upside down for 5 minutes every day to get the blood back into your brain to circulate, and it'll make you think clearer. And so if you get stuck, hang upside down for a while. It works.
I'm going to totally try this in the green room after we're off the
Right,
stage.
so you can just lie on the edge of the bed and hang your head off, and that counts. So you don't have to do a handstand or anything. So.
I like handstands.
Oh, you can do a handstand.
Just to add one thing to what you were saying, though, just because in terms of querying and things like that, I think it's like you can't, or even writing, right? You have to actually not quit, right? Like that's like 97% of the game is just to like actually not quit. So like I queried a lot. Like
me too.
An embarrassing amount of rejections. Like, and luckily I'd gone to acting school for college, and week one they're like, you're entering an industry where you're going to get 99 or 100 no's out of 100 times you try something. So you need to be right with that. And so I really got set for rejection in my life. And that has worked out for me. I've been rejected a lot. It's
Same here. As a dancer in New York City, going to cattle calls, there's like hundreds of girls for one spot. Yeah, definitely.
But you have to be persistent. The only way to get published after you faced your 90th rejection is to be like, well, I'm going to send 10 more and see what happens.
We call that rage querying. Like you get mad, right? No, it took me 3.5 years and 3 books to sign with an agent. So keep going.
Just keep going. I think we have a little bit of time for maybe 1 or 2 questions from the more audience over here.
That is so much pressure on the audience. They're like, oh my God, we have to ask the one good question.
2. 1 or 2.
I saw folks nodding out there. I mean, they're paying attention.
If anyone has a question, we have my colleague with a microphone. You can raise your hand.
I see somebody with a hand raised over there.
Over here.
Hi, I was just curious, do you think it's important as an aspiring writer to network with like publishers and agents beforehand? Or is it more important just to focus on the writing and let that speak for itself?
Focus on the writing, but if you get the opportunity to go to conferences or writing retreats, I highly recommend it, because that's where you're going to meet agents and editors, and when you meet them in person, then you send them a query and you can say, I met you at so-and-so in the subject line. They will read your query so much faster because having that personal connection. So if you can, and there's a lot of them that happen in New York City, so if you can, go to a conference, go to a writing workshop. A lot of them give scholarships now, but definitely focus on your writing and do this as a second thing.
Yeah, I will definitely agree with that. It's the nicest, best-looking person in the world. Meeting agents and stuff, I thought would help me, but it did not. Like my writing had to be good, so definitely work on your writing first. But if you get the opportunity, absolutely. Like I got my agent because I had met another agent through a networking thing. We had a common interest in theater. We became friends, and then she read my novel and was like, "It's not right for me, but let me give it to my colleague." So like it can help.
Yeah, and keep an open mind, because you don't know what the universe has in store for you. Just because you think you're on this path, if you keep an open mind, something else might happen for you.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Here she comes. Here she comes.
And if we have time to sneak in a third, I saw somebody with their hand raised on the left side of the room.
Okay, I'll make it quick. This is for both of you. Is writing Writing is not your full-time job, Victor. I'm curious if it's your full-time job, And how do you balance your day to make sure you're devoting time to writing?
I have 6 jobs, and I have a 13-year-old. So I do not recommend writing being your full-time job. I'm going to say that right now. I know a lot of people think that's a dream. Publishing is so slow. Everything takes forever. If you just focus on that, it will drive you insane. Like, seriously. If I didn't have my other jobs, like I'm also a fitness and yoga instructor. I work for the Quiet Writers Conference. I have an Etsy shop. I teach fitness and yoga. I'm a writing instructor and a book coach. And all those things balance me out. So, and I just, every day is different, and it's great. I love it. It's such a great thing.
Yeah, I find time mostly by ignoring my children, but I think
I do that sometimes.
yeah, no, but I mean seriously, I find as little or as much time as I can capture when I can capture it, and usually if I'm doing it right and I'm steady, I'll be doing like an hour after dinner and then before I relax, and I don't, assuming it's not, yeah.
We can do one more real quick. Is that you? I was just wondering, with your characters, what do you do when you feel like you maybe lost touch with your characters, or you want to go more in depth with them, and then also with visualization, because sometimes I feel like in the past I was able to visualize a lot more, but as I worked on it, then the visualization it kind of like faded, and I was just wondering what that was.
So I base characters on like things I see. So one character was a chef, and I would watch the Food Network, and she was she's like does gala inspired cooking, and I would just watch her the show, and her mannerism, how she speaks, how she talks, like what she talks about, and I kind of visualized it like that. So like, or go to a coffee shop and watch people and see how they speak. Like, that's how I get my characters, and then I try to emulate that so that they get in my head, so that when I go to write down their dialogue, you're talking like that person.
Yeah, for me, I think, and this applies to both character work and the scene thing, which is one of the better pieces of, I think, guidance I got at one point was, there's a surface level of things when you describe somebody or something. This person's wearing a green sweatshirt, right? But then, like, what's the fifth thing you notice about that room or that person? And that's the interesting part. Like, pull that out. Like, that's the deeper dive. So I spend a lot of time actually thinking about, like, in describing something, there's the surface aspects, but what's the thing that you might notice walking into the room for half a second that's interesting, but 5 other people walk in the room and they just see like green curtains, and that's kind of what I try to bring out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So our next panel includes 2 horror writers, Delilah S. Dawson and Charlotte Carter. Delilah S. Dawson is the New York Times bestselling author of Star Wars, Phasma, Plus, House of Idol, Bloom, Guillotine, The Violence, It Will Only Hurt for a Moment, Ride or Die, Camp Scare, Mine, Thor and Loki, Epic Tales of Marvel Mythology, Ravenloft, Star Wars Inquisitor, and dozens of novels and comics for all ages. You can learn more at www.delilahsdawson.com. Charlotte Carter is the acclaimed author of the Nanette Hayes mystery series. Her short fiction has appeared in several anthologies, both American and British anthologies. She has lived in the American Midwest, North Africa, and France. She currently resides in New York City. Interviewing the authors is Miranda Seiler, a supervising librarian here at SNFL. In her free time, she loves consuming scary books and movies, but she will not go into a haunted house. Please welcome Delilah, Charlotte, and Miranda.
So welcome to the horror panel. So to start off, thinking about horror as a genre, both of you are actually well known for writing in other genres. So Charlotte, you're an acclaimed mystery writer, and Delilah, you write a lot of sci-fi and fantasy. And I'm curious if the writing process is any different for writing horror and how that might be?
Well, it differs from every genre. I was not an outlining writer. We call it, pantsing versus plotting. So I was a pantser, and I would have like 1 or 2 books every year that would kind of punk out around 20 pages or 100 pages, or my agent wouldn't like them. And then when I started writing for Star Wars, you have to have an outline because Star Wars apparently doesn't trust me to just make things up. So I had to come up with my first outline, and I wrote my outline, and they approved it, and I started writing, and I was like, oh my God, I gave myself a cheat sheet. Now I know what happens. It was really valuable, and I realized that if I started outlining, I could land the plane. So for all of my IP or franchise work, like Star Wars or Dungeons & Dragons, I have to outline. But when it comes to horror, part of the fun of horror is discovering it as you go. So I will have like a list of scenes I kind of want at the end of the document, and then whenever I come to a place where I'm like, okay, I need to scare the crap out of this small child, I'll kind of go down there and mine whatever looks good and then erase it. And so by the end of the document, I should have nothing left out of that list. But for horror, there's so much of it as serendipity, things that you see or that happen or that scare you that you're like, oh, this would be the perfect way to frighten people. So I kind of have to do a little bit of everything depending on which genre it is.
Charlotte, yeah.
I suppose the methods differ a bit from mystery writing and the other sort of writing I do, and I really think it's a little more than a little misleading to say I write horror. I mean, I told a friend I was doing this panel, and she said, "Why do they have you on a panel about horror?" I said, "Perhaps someone told them my book was horrible." So I hope that's not true.
I loved it.
Anyway, I started writing because I thought I was a poet, and I knew it. I got to know an awful lot of them, and before I realized that wasn't for me. But when I'm writing something, initially I'm into the rise and fall of the prose and the dialogue more than anything else, and so one has to remind oneself, oh, you have to get back to the plot. You've killed someone on page 60, and you have to explain what happened after that. So there's not that much difference.
Yeah, I will also say that Beauty and the Blood does read like a mystery novel in addition to a horror.
You think?
I think so.
I'm glad to hear that.
That being said, both of these books were fairly bloody. One of my coworkers said, yes, this book has a high body count. And so I'm curious, when writing either horror generally or just any of your books, are you thinking ahead of time about how scary or gruesome, etc., you want the story to be from the outset, or does that also just kind of reveal itself?
Well, I think I set a little bit of a challenge for myself with this book. The violence, for the most part, happens off of the page. The real blood happens off of the page. What's left on the page, because there are 2 threads in the book. One is a group of slaves at the end of the Civil War making their way across Georgia, and the other thread in the book is there's a young girl who is sort of reincarnated over and over as the centuries roll out. So clearly the slaves have seen some pretty awful things and end up committing some awful things. But the violence for the young girl, who we see in 1865, and she's someone else in 1967, and she's someone else at a party, and even has conversations with people where both people are her. She doesn't know that. And she's also somebody who doesn't relate to the the violence and the blood because she's going mad. She doesn't know that she does all these things. So I'm not sure I know how to write a really, really grotesque. I don't know if I could do that.
I know how to write a really, really grotesque book. This one is actually not my goriest, bloodiest book. I have one called Guillotine that's basically a billionaire murder island. I was real mad at billionaires, so I punished them. But every book demands a certain amount of blood for the stories. Basically, in horror, nothing is scary unless there's a threat. Ghosts are kind of scary, but when people start turning up dead or when there are actual threats out there and not just, I heard someone say woo and they knocked over some books, you have to escalate the violence. I have a book called The Violence, which is also another violent book. But my agent had always told me, like, you can kill as many people as you want, but you cannot kill the dog. And I was like, rude. But that is my most literary book. It's based on a pandemic of random violence, and it follows 3 generations of women as they try to navigate that pandemic while escaping the cycle of domestic abuse. And so, like, I had to kill the dog because you had to show that things were very serious. And I was like, would you rather I killed her 5-year-old daughter? Like, you can have a choice. So some books you have to have a higher body count to show that the world is serious and that there's an actual threat to the characters. And then sometimes, I wrote like Minecraft books, and no one dies in there because no one dies in Minecraft. I don't know where the zombies come from, but they're not real dead people. But when I think about it, even my least violent book, which is a YA love story called Midnight and Houdini, where I was like, look, I told my agent, I didn't kill a single person in this book. And she was like, dude, the hotel is full of ghosts. Where do you think they came from? So I don't know if I know how to write a nonviolent book.
So going a little bit, I'm going to jump around on this a little bit, going into the specifics of these books. So Charlotte, as you mentioned, your book is built upon this idea of like a family curse, you could call it. It's connected to the aftershocks of slavery. And it also references these like real African-American folk traditions, such as story quilts. And I'm wondering, what was the inspiration for these aspects of the story? And did you do any research into that kind of thing?
Well, as this female character is seen in many guises, something I thought was interesting is to put each character in place so that at one point, to answer what you asked about specifically, class figures in. So there are 2 people who are asking questions at a place that's sort of like the Studio Museum in Harlem and sort of like the Schomburg and that sort of thing. They're educated. They're kidding each other about how real the quilts were. Whereas in other chapters, the girl is someone else, a black hippie. And so the young man she ends up with is from a lower class, whose brother is in Vietnam, etc. So yeah, one is interested in many things. So I thought it would be great to try to put the different characters in different milieus.
Amazing. Delilah, your book is obviously very different. It's the backdrop is sort of rock and roll and celebrity culture more generally. And so I'm wondering if there was any specific inspiration for these aspects of the story.
Yeah, so this book was inspired by a BuzzFeed article. I just saw popped up on my, general scrolling through Instagram one day, a picture of Jared Leto in like white Jesus robes and aviator sunglasses with his hair billowing behind him, leading a group of people in white down a beach. And apparently he has supposedly, please don't sue me, Jared Leto,
Allegedly.
allegedly has a cult. of followers of his band 30 Seconds to Mars, but it moves into a lifestyle cult. And I was like, oh my God, like this, he was a teen heartthrob on My So-Called Life, and now he has a Grammy and an Emmy, and he was in Fight Club, and he's done all of these things. And I was like, surely he didn't do this on his own. There must have been otherworldly forces involved. And so the book became kind of a rock and roll story about, you know, we have these bands that make billions of dollars, and we all hope, you know, why don't you help the next generation of artists instead of spending your money on Lamborghinis and really expensive clothes and your 8th mansion? Like, what if you lifted up some, you know, burgeoning artists who could really use that lift? Why wouldn't you do that? You know, there used to be a culture of rich people would have a folly in their backyard, and they would have a hermit that they paid to walk out during parties and give poetry. And so the thought was, what if your favorite band had like a little commune where they would give you a tiny house, and they would give you all the food you need, and they would give you all of the things you need to make art? And what a great thing this would be. But that's kind of like saying what a great deal it is to be a sheep and taking really good care of the farmer. But then every now and then one of your friends disappears, and that sheep doesn't come back, and the farmer eats really well that night. So I figured, what if people were like that too? So it's kind of a, you know, how you would get obsessed with your favorite rock star. What would happen if you joined a cult accidentally that seemed to answer all of your prayers? But it's a really fun book too, because they let me do CD liner notes. So like every chapter starts with a little CD logo and music, like song lyrics from the various bands. So like I have written down somewhere like their whole discography and how the band kind of changed from their punk rock roots, and they went through like their spiritual section, and now they're more like very theatrical. So my husband is a musician, and he made one of the songs. So like the trailer has an original song from the book in it. So it ended up from a BuzzFeed article to kind of becoming this multimedia thing.
Love it. I really thought that the characters were really strong in both of these books, and I'm wondering if you have, I mean, this is probably like asking if you have a favorite child, but perhaps if you have a character that you especially enjoyed writing from these books.
Are you on a roll? Do you want to keep talking?
Sure. I mean, of course, a book that it was inspired by Jared Leto is going to have a charismatic lead singer who appears perfect, that, you know, was on every band poster of every teenage girl at the time. So it's really fun kind of crafting this character. And the main character, Angelina, is an aspiring singer-songwriter who is kind of brought out of her worst day and chosen by the band, you know, almost like people waiting to be discovered at Starbucks. She kind of was. And so there has to be a love story. She falls in love with him. So it was really fun to craft a rock star who seems perfect, and then every now and then you see a little bit red flag, but you're like, maybe I'm just wearing rose-colored glasses. But, you know, rock stars, we think of them as like eccentric and strange. Like at one point he does a bad thing that boyfriends shouldn't do and treats her badly, and he doesn't talk about it. He just shows up outside of her room barefoot, like playing a guitar, like say anything, and thinks that will fix everything. So it was fun writing kind of like the childlike, idiocy, spoiled, rotten, beautiful Lestat style idiot.
But you like him.
I mean, in the same way that I like,
one gets to like him.
I mean, it's the same way we love all that character that you're like, oh, if he came on to me, I would know it. And then you're like, would I?
I was of course interested in each iteration of this girl as the time went on. I think I forgot to mention there's a great deal of sex in this book. So yeah, I was interested in each one, and when in the mystery series, it was nice having the main character, a girl who's a jazz musician, getting older as the books went on. I got a lot older, and that's something else. You kind of have to trick yourself into being interested all the time, because writing is not always interesting. So it was a privilege in a way to have this character go from about 27 to about 32. And what happened to her, I can barely remember what happened to me. But it's also a way not to get too set in your ways as a person, a writer and a person, to be dealing with characters unlike yourself. And you know, I hate doing research and that kind of thing, but I did some kind of skitsy research, like an insane asylum for coloreds in the 17 and 1800s, or prostitutes in New Orleans at the turn of the century, because there were people I was placing even for 2 paragraphs in strange places. I've forgotten what's the question. What did you
Just if you had like a character that you especially enjoyed writing, but I feel like you answered it.
Yeah, I love dialogue, doing dialogue, and you know, the characters are the dialogue and vice versa. So
Absolutely. So I'm wondering. I have to imagine. I'm projecting. I wonder if this answer is different for both of you. Do either of you read many horror books or watch horror movies? And did you have any sort of in mind when you were writing these books?
I read hundreds of mysteries and watch them too. I'm caught up in a lot of mystery series, especially the British ones. And I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe more, there was a big trend with Scandinavian mystery writers, and I really like them. So yeah.
Yeah, I read a lot of horror because I try to prioritize blurbing upcoming authors to kind of, you know, people really helped me out with my first couple books, giving me good blurbs, and so you want to help the next generation up. So on my Kindle, I have a whole bunch of blurb books, and then I use Libby and Hoopla, which, if you guys don't know about Libby and Hoopla, if you have a library card, you can download these 2 apps, and then you can listen to audiobooks for free, which is wonderful because if they don't work for you, you can just return them and get a new one, which Audible won't let you do. So I like to kind of listen for myself when I go for my long Terminator walks. I try to walk, a couple miles every day, and so I put on the fun ones. So I guess actually inspiring the book, though, I've enjoyed lately White Lotus, the TV show, and 9 Perfect Strangers, but just that idea of here is this beautiful, perfect backdrop. Nothing could ever go wrong here. Oh, look, a dead body. I also have a book called It Will Only Hurt for a Moment that's set at a writer's or an artist colony that's very similar. But I love the idea of, you should have everything you need at this beautiful remote location that doesn't have super great cell phone service. Oh no, what's that?
I can see it. What books are you currently reading?
Let's see. Some poetry, actually, from people who are old friends. Much to my shame, during the pandemic, when everybody was reading again, I read nothing. I read next to nothing. I watched an awful lot of television, streaming things, but I didn't read that much. Ordinarily, I would be reading Dennis Lehane and Walter Mosley and, you name them, or older, even though sometimes older things. And it seems popular now at this distance for people of my generation, arriving in New York, late 70s, early 80s as a kid. People are now writing a lot about that thing, living downtown and living down the block from Patti Smith, and you think you're really something. You're really living. And I have not been able to do fiction about that. And I would love to write a book, not about that, but being a child and Chicago, trying to make my peace with Chicago, and so I'm rambling now.
All good.
It was what we're reading right now.
Yeah, what you're reading right now.
So I just, at New York Comic Con, I moderated a transgressive horror panel. And so I was reading those 3 writers' latest books, which naturally I had, 2 weeks to read 3 books while also on my own deadline. So I got as far as I could in each of them. But that would be We Are Always Tender with Our Dead by Eric LaRocca. If you like splatterpunk or kind of very aggressive new kind of horror, it's super gross. You read it and you're kind of like, ooh, I feel gross, but that was great. He's really good for that. Clay McLeod Chapman, he is a Brooklyn writer, but he has a short story collection called Acquired Tastes that is wild. It starts with a short story about throwing a baby in the chimney, and then it goes to nuns and axolotls, and there's one about baby carrots that will make you never put a baby carrot in your mouth ever again. And then the other one was Haley Piper's Teenage Girls Are Demons, which is another short story collection, and almost all the stories are related to various aspects of womanhood. So those are all good. And then I'll tell you the most recent book that really surprised me that I loved is called The Paleontologist, and it's by Luc Dumas, or I think he pronounces it, anyway, Dumas. I'm not going to pronounce that wrong because that would sound horrible. But I listened to it on Libby because you're going through looking at books, and it was like, there's a dinosaur on it. I'm like, dinosaur horror? Like, why? How can you make me scared of dinosaurs? They've been gone for millions and millions of years. And I kind of like listened to it as a dare because I was like, oh, a haunted museum with dinosaurs? You can't scare me. It's so good. Like it was a dare, and he totally lived up to it. So it's a great book. But I'm going to read his next book. Is called Nothing Tastes as Good, and it's a take on diet culture. So I'm really excited about it.
Oh, amazing. Okay, I'm gonna file that for later. Okay, so I want to make sure that everyone has time to shop. So we're gonna take 1 or 2 questions from the audience now. So raise your hand if you have something.
No pressure.
As I say, I also have more questions. Oh, we've got one over there.
Yeah, over here. Okay. I guess I was curious about how, in terms of history. Well, I guess with the first speaker, I know you do like Star Trek, but I was wondering if you, with what kind of research you do with your kind of horror stories, or do you enjoy that? And I was just curious of also both of you, your perspectives on writer's block. So that's it.
Yeah, research. I'm really big into experiential research. Like, I don't like to get things wrong. I remember reading one time a book that had a sex scene on a hay bale, and I was like, you've never been in a barn, and you have lost my faith, because you clearly don't know what you're talking about. Put your pants back on in the barn. So, like before I wrote a book where they were riding camels, I went and rode a camel. And before I did a book with trapeze, I went and took a trapeze class. So before I wrote like the artist retreat, I went on a retreat. And it was super weird, but like I was like, oh, well, where do you get your food at a retreat? So it's really important to me to experience things. It's also a nice tax write-off if you want to go. Like, I had a book set in Chicago, so I was like, oh, time to go to Chicago and see Le Grand Jatte. So that was really nice. And my perspective on writer's block is that most of the time, it's either fear or stagnation, and that movement helps a lot. So like I'll go for a walk and put on music that makes me feel like the book and try to get that moving. And if it doesn't work, I look at the last scene I was super secure about and see where it went wrong. Quite often I've made a choice that was not, either I was ramrodding the story in the way that the main character would not pursue it, or the main character made an out-of-context choice that that character wouldn't make. And if I go back and look at the last scene, I can see where I went wrong. But yeah, going for a walk, taking a shower, a bath, getting near moving water, sometimes you're just kind of emotionally, mentally constipated and need to get moving.
I think that question was for you.
This may be kind of a basic question, but I've always wondered this. Do you ever, are you scaring yourself when you're writing? Like, I feel like sometimes when I read horror books, I have to kind of put the book down for a minute, maybe like a 24-hour kind of thing, and return to it later. And I wonder, like, are you so into the writing process that you are kind of separated from the scary part of it, or are you writing and thinking maybe I should, take a moment and then return to this because you're kind of freaking yourself out?
I mean, I think the scene comes from things that scare us that you kind of store away in your head. I have a middle grade horror called Ride or Die that is set in an abandoned amusement park because we lived in Tampa for 3 years. And at Busch Gardens, you could see this creepy old gray crusty roller coaster with like the wood broken on it. And they tried to hide it behind palm trees. And I was like, I see, like somebody's going to die on that. Like that is so terrifying. Like, and you get on the roller coaster and you think, well, at least I do. I'm like, well, I'm about to die. Here we go. So, you store that away as a thing that frightens you. Or like, we were taking care of our neighbors' cats one time in Florida. In their house, we would get lost in their house because they had mirrors at weird places. And my daughter was like, wouldn't it be weird if this was haunted? And I was like, yes, I can write that book. So I think it's little things that store you away where, writing the scene doesn't scare me. But like I have one where like this girl is sleepwalking and in her backyard, she has a pool that has gone like black and rancid. And she wakes up like in that water and it's so gelid she can't get out, which like that terrifies me. So you just store all your fears away later to terrify children.
We can do one more. There's one up here, I see. Here. Oh, I come right through. Excuse me. Hi.
Thank you. Hi, I just wanted to ask Charlotte. You said you want to write something about downtown during a certain period in history. I love period, like fiction, like anything about another period. So what informs your stories? Is it the period or the personality, the character, or which comes first?
Well, I guess they have to come together. If you're writing about, in a way, you're writing about who you were at that point in time, assuming it's not the last century. Yeah, and I like to think that my writing about that time in New York and the art that was happening and the music that was happening, even if I lived 2 doors away from CBGB's, that was not the whole of living in those days, if you know what I'm saying. Just as the 60s were not entirely about hippies and Panthers, etc. There's emotional stuff going on, and you put characters in context, or you put them in different circumstances. And yes, the time influences what happens to people. But, and maybe this is a theme in the current book, people do change with the times, but they're still themselves. So I hope, does that kind of answer what you're asking?
I think that's a wonderful note to end on. So thank you, everyone.
Now we have Miriam Trujillo, one of the staff from Penguin Random House, to tell you all about the new and upcoming titles.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. I'm a library marketing manager at Penguin Random House, but I'm also a New York Public Library veteran, so honored to be here and share with you some of our forthcoming titles and some that are out. You each should have a sheet, so I'll just be talking about 8 titles. These are the works, and also on the back there are some information about some resources that are available to you. These are wonderful panels. Cannot thank folks enough for feeding my librarian soul. But Borrow, Read, Repeat is Penguin Random House's library marketing site for patrons, and it tells you about new and forthcoming books. You can also, if you're interested, you can also join the First Look Book Club, which gives you an opportunity to read excerpts of new works, and it's received in your inbox. And now I just want to share the first title. The understudy is for fans of Megan Abbott's The Turnout and Brendan Slocum's The Violin Conspiracy. And in this fast-paced thriller, an opera singer uncovers the dark secrets of her cruel and alluring understudy when a murder disrupts her disciplined world. After years of rigorous instruction and ensemble work, Kit finally gets her big break when she's hired to play the lead role in a new opera based on the 1960s cult classic film Barbarella. Entrusted with playing the beautiful, seductive titular role, Kit is on her way to the top of the highly competitive world of the New York City Opera. But then she walks into rehearsal and meets her understudy. Excuse me. Stunning, suggestive, and bursting with the unbridled confidence of a novice, Yolanda is physically everything Barbarella is meant to be. At first, Kit isn't threatened by the neophyte until Yolanda reveals that she wants the role and will do anything to get it. But when a brutal murder destabilizes the company and threatens her role, Kit discovers that Yolanda's glamorous veneer conceals something much more sinister. And next we have The Girl with Ice in Her Veins. And Lisbeth Salander is back, and maybe even better than ever. Sweden's far north is growing colder. Even in springtime, the town of Gaskus is buried under a relentless snow. As temperatures drop, tensions rise between a global corporation shamelessly exploiting the area's natural resources and wary locals who have scores to settle. A bomb blasts apart a crucial bridge, and soon after, a young journalist is found murdered. Meanwhile, Lisbeth is at home in Stockholm, looking to fill the void her last lover left behind. When she discovers the fellow hacker Plague has been kidnapped and taken up north, she has no choice but to return to Gaskus with Mikael Blomkvist at her side. Lured to a lawless town full of predators, Salander and Blomkvist must untangle a history of violence before it's too late. And The Girl with Ice in Her Veins is a twisty, hard-hitting thriller that breathes new life in Stieg Larsson's epic series. And another mystery that we recommend, this is a debut. It's a debut historical mystery by London-based musician and screenwriter A.E. Golden. Thrillingly paced, it launches an unforgettable new hero in a series that provides all the nostalgic reading pleasure of classic Sherlock Holmes. London, 1854. 21-year-old Ben Canaan attracts trouble wherever he goes. His father wants him to be a good Jewish son, working for the family business on Whitechapel Road, but Ben and his friends, the good-for-nothings, just want adventure. Then the chance discovery of an enigmatic letter and a photograph of a beautiful woman bring Ben an adventure more dangerous than anything he'd imagine. Suddenly is thrown into the heart of a mystery that takes him all the way to Constantinople, the jewel of an empire and the center of the world on the brink of war. Ben's only clue is 3 words: the White Death. Now he must find what links a string of grisly murders and follow a trail of conspiracy, high politics, bloodshed, and betrayal. Our next title is a little bit different, Kooky Spooky Love by Josie Silver. An up-and-coming Ghostbuster and her motley crew tackle a devilish high-wire act aided or more often interrupted by her rakish ex and the sarcastic reporter she can't seem to shake. Maplemead Castle is crawling with ghosts, and the new owners need them gone. When Melody Bittersweet and the girls' ghost-busting agency arrive on scene, they quickly identify the main troublemaker, swinging from the chandeliers. A century ago, stunning trapeze artist Britannia Lovell plunged to her death in the castle's grand ballroom and has continued to haunt it ever since. But did she really just fall, or was there something more to her demise? Forced to work with Leo Dark, her scoundrel ex, and the infuriating, irresistible reporter Fletcher Gunn, Melody has her work cut out for her. Somewhere, hidden in the castle, is a heartbreaking secret, but what will it take to find it? And is there a chance it could be Britannia free? It could set Britannia free, or is she doomed to repeat her last fateful act forever? Kooky Spooky Love is perfect for rom-com readers who like a helping of magic and fans of Janet Ivanovich and Mia Manansala. And next we have Blood Like Ours, and this is a horror tale by the award-winning author Stuart Neville, who's been named in many ways the king of Belfast noir. And in this chilling follow-up to Blood Like Mine, one mother faces the ultimate supernatural horror, the monster she must become to protect her child. El Paso, Texas. Rebecca Carter wakes up on a morgue table with only two desires: to find her daughter Moonflower and to sate her gnawing hunger. Rebecca sets out on a desperate quest, fighting her murderous craving for blood and pursued by a vengeful FBI agent. Alone in the wild, Monica Carter survives on whatever small prey she can hunt down, but she needs more. One night, a young man lures her through the mountain scrub with the scent of human blood, promising he and his little brother will feed her and keep her safe. Somehow these brothers know her nickname, Moonflower, and the truth of what she is. She needs them, but can she trust them? When FBI Special Agent Sarah McGrath learns that Rebecca Carter's body has disappeared from the morgue, she's on the next plane to El Paso. Rebecca is responsible for the death of her partner, and McGrath wants answers, but she never expected them to come from a shadowy figure within the Bureau. And next, almost there, we have Anatomy of an Alibi, and this is from the #1 New York Times bestselling author of First Lie Wins, a fast-paced, immersive thriller about two women's lives that are forever intertwined when a murder threatens to expose them. Everyone at Chantilly's bar noticed out-of-towner Camille Bayliss. Red lips, designer heels, sipping a Negroni. But that woman wasn't Camille Bayliss. It was Aubrey Price. Camille Bayliss appears to have a picture-perfect life. She's married to hotshot lawyer Ben and is the daughter of a wealthy Louisiana family. Only nothing is as it seems. Camille believes Ben has been hiding dirty secrets for years, but she can't find proof because he tracks her every move. Aubrey Price has been haunted by the terrible night that changed her life a decade ago, and she's convinced that Benjamin Bayliss knows something about it. Living in a house full of criminals, Aubrey understands there's more than one way to get at the truth, and she may have found the best way in. So Aubrey and Camille hatch a plan. It sounds simple. For 12 hours, Aubrey will take Camille's place. Camille will spy on Ben, and the two women will get the answers they desperately seek. Except the next morning, Ben is found murdered. Both women need an airtight alibi, but only one of them has it. And one false step is all it takes for everything to come undone. Just a little bit about the author. Ashley Elston worked for many years as a wedding photographer before turning her hand to writing First Lie Wins, which was her adult debut and a Reese's Book Club pick that has now been translated into more than 30 languages. And Anatomy of an Alibi is her second adult novel. Next we have The X's, and this is by Ladora Darlington. Who hasn't wanted to murder an ex, figuratively at least? In this thriller, a woman's seemingly perfect romantic life is on the verge of collapse as she uncovers a hidden history servicing dark, deadly secrets. Natalie has only ever wanted to find the one, the perfect man, the happy family she never had. But each time she thinks she is finally getting somewhere, she's bitterly disappointed. Another red line through a list of exes. And that was before the night of the big fallout, which left her even more alone. Then along comes James. Wonderful, handsome James. And Natalie thinks her luck has finally turned. Maybe he's the one for her. Maybe he's the one she's been waiting for all along. Maybe he won't end up dead. But the harder Natalie tries to be a normal wife, the more world upending truths are brought through her door, leaving her unsure of who she really is and much less what she'll do, leaving her to question whether there is a monster within her. What's the secret story behind Natalie's dead exes? Will she and James survive their marriage? And do either of them deserve to? The author, Leodora Darlington, is a writer from London with Ghanaian heritage. She received distinction for her master's in creative writing from Brunel University of London, and The X's is her debut novel. And lastly, just wanted to share The Jills, and this is another mystery. It's another debut work, literary, with a mystery-driven plot. It's about a Buffalo Bills cheerleader who will stop at nothing to solve the disappearance of her best friend and teammate. Virginia is a Jill, a professional Buffalo Bills cheerleader living the life she always dreamed of. She spends her weekdays practicing, her weekends cheering, and her nights club hopping with her close-knit band of teammates and her best friend Janine. But one Sunday, Janine fails to show up for a game. All her calls and texts go unanswered. Aided by a worried network of Jills, ex-boyfriends, and seedy fixtures of Buffalo's criminal underground, Virginia embarks on an investigation into Janine's disappearance. But as her search grows increasingly dangerous, disturbing questions about who Janine really is begin to emerge. Soon, Virginia finds herself wondering how well she knows her friend, if she can trust the people and the institutions she thought were protecting her, and whether, when trying to save the people she cares about most, she's capable of saving herself too. Just wanted to share a couple of things, that this is a novel that's inspired by real-life Jills controversy. Parkman, the author, got the idea for this novel after reading the New York Times investigation about the lawsuit filed by the Jills cheerleaders against the Bills management for mistreatment and compensation violations. Also wanted to let you know that this is a novel that's been optioned for TV by a major studio. Also, just one final thing, that this is an author with some serious literary chops. She has an MFA from the Iowa Writers Workshop, and her stories have appeared in Joyland, the Michigan Quarterly Review, as well as other places. And the Jills actually has been supported by fellowships at the McDowell, Yaddo, and the Vermont Studio Center. So that's it for me. I do want to let you know that there are some advanced reader copies of some of the titles that I shared with you in the next door room, and just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you do to support the New York Public Library and building a reading community across the city.